Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. It's midsummer and today I'll be working on my willow bonsai trees. It seems like just yesterday I made a video on my willow trees, but it's actually been 2 years since I've done an update. So let's go in and have a look at them. My willow is the tallest tree in the bonsai garden, so you can see it growing up here. The reason I've been letting it grow is I wanted to strengthen that transition from the original trunk to the new branch that's growing out the side, the one that lived. The rest of the tree died off. Let's go look at my other weeping willow. It was taken as a small cutting from the big old willow tree in the park. So here it is. You can see it's grown quite a bit. Roots are filling the pot underneath. Yeah, definitely needs some work. My last willow is this black willow, which is growing in a cracked pot down here. I'll get the willow trees on the workbench and we'll start today's work here in the bonsai zone. I've let the willow grow so it's even taller than me. The reason I haven't done any updates for 2 years is I've been letting the tree grow. Most of this tree died off, but I had one branch survive, and it was a skinny little branch. So I've been letting it grow unrestricted to thicken up this branch so it blends in with the trunk in both texture and thickness. I'll start today's work by pruning back that 2 years of growth to get the tree more compact. I'm going to prune the tree fairly compact. I can always let these branches grow again if I want the tree to look larger. So I'm pruning for taper, so I'm going to prune it quite far back to about here. Big cut. So here I go. Gone. I'll put this willow cutting in water. I'll cut it up into several small pieces, put it in a glass of water, and root it, and maybe someday create a willow forest. I'm still very high on a lot of the other branches, so they'll need to be pruned back more compact also. So here I go. I'll have my canopy kind of fill in at about this height. So I'll prune it back to here. And here. These branches are still a little long, so I'll take them back even further. When a healthy willow is pruned back hard like this, it usually explodes with new growth. I'm going to clean up the branch structure of the tree now. I have some growth in this area that's coming from the inside of the curve here, which doesn't look good, so I'm going to remove that. And there's some coming from behind this branch. I'll cut that off too. There's a lot of new growth in this area that's just sprouted this year. So I'm going to clean that up, just keeping the branches I want so it's not a big clump of new foliage coming out there. I want all my trunks to come upright, and then as they grow longer they'll start to weep, giving that nice arching look to the branches. I should show you a full-size willow that really inspires me. It's one of my favorite looking weeping willow trees. So let's take a road trip and go have a look at it. Willow Park, here I come. The willow in Willow Park is really inspirational. It's a really nice looking willow. Make a great bonsai tree. Well, here I am. I've arrived at Willow Park. Here's a view of the base of the tree. You can see it's quite large. Here's an overall view of the tree. It's a kind of a nice umbrella shaped style. And you know I like my umbrella shaped trees. So we'll come in at the base of the tree here. It's got a very nice root base, very solid looking. I'll just have a walk around. Yeah, some really big veins going into the ground. A lot of growth. The trunk is starting to get some burls on it. You can see one there. As we go up the trunk here, you can see some deadwood showing in various places. Willows, as they get old, they get all these gnarly bumps all over them. Just one of the features of a willow. There's where the branches divide. Yeah, full of character, this tree. It's just thick and veiny. There's quite a prominent vein coming there. It sort of, the front face of this branch is quite flat, or trunk. And it's very interesting. As I come up this branch, there's some really interesting features out here. Right out here. Really nice character to this branch. It just curves and snakes along. And it continues along here. It's a very long weeping branch, which is unusual on willows to have long weeping branches like this. And all the foliage goes down and touches the ground. It actually grows along the surface of the ground here. Amazing. Willows do this with the lower branches. It stops other trees growing in the area, so it doesn't have any competitors. I'm fully inspired. Let's head back home. Home safe and sound. That was really inspiring to see the full-size willow tree. So now it's back to my bonsai willow. I'll continue cleaning out these new branches down here, keeping the ones I want and cutting the rest away. You can see this trunk line more clearly now. I have to decide which of these I'm going to keep. I have a dead one here I can remove, like that. I think what I'll do is just keep the strongest shoot and see how that looks. I think I'll keep this branch here. It doesn't look very good at the moment, but in the future, you know, I'll have this main trunk dividing into two here. So this will be one trunk and there'll be another on this side. My next operation will be to clean up the root base of this tree. It has a lot of moss growing up, a lot of this Irish or Scotch moss that has really deep roots, so I want to get rid of all that. And I'll get my tweezers and I'll be picking off the regular moss from the trunk, so it keeps a nice bark texture all the way down to the soil level. I was looking at the trunk here, and there's a large plate of bark that's kind of flaking off here, and I'm thinking, well, maybe that section of it is dead. So I'm going to try peeling this bark back, see what's underneath. So I do eventually want to find the live sections of this tree. The tree's growing really strongly in this area, but I do have a dead section running up here. But I think that'll heal over fairly quickly. There's a bug in the crevice here. Earwig or something. I'll rotate the tree around so you can get a better view of that dead section on the trunk. Here's a view of the trunk, showing the dead section up the middle and the live veins that go each side. And I don't know how much of this is alive up here. It feels quite firm up there, but maybe time will tell as this decays. We'll see where the live veins go. I've got the moss and the root base cleaned up, so I'll rotate it around so you can have a look. Back to the front. Yeah, so it's getting a nice buttressing at the root base. Looks really good. Here's a shot of the trunk now. I'll rotate that around. Getting some nice bark texture on here. This tree was kept outside all winter. Got some really cold temperatures this winter, down to minus 24 degrees Celsius. And the tree survived. I wouldn't recommend keeping it out on the bench all winter. I would give it some protection, but definitely hardy trees. The last operation I'll do on this tree today is lift it out of my pot of water and trim the roots on the bottom. Take my tray away and start trimming all these roots back. I'm just cutting away the roots from the drainage holes, getting rid of this mat of roots. Like that. There, that cleans the tree up. I'll refill my pot of water with fresh water and fertilizer and get the tree back in it. I've added some fertilizer to the water, so I'll give it a stir. Just like that. And now I'll put the tree back in. Just like that. I'll also give the tree a good water from above. Make sure that soil is nicely soaked. I finished work on my larger weeping willow, so now let's get out the next one. The next willow I'll be working on is my cutting that I took off that old willow from the park. My first operation on this tree will be just to prune it back in size so it's not really tall. So here I go. I'm just going to do a hedge type pruning to the top of the tree, getting a rounded canopy. And that gets the tree back to size. I originally had the main trunk and 1, 2, 3 lower trunks coming off the tree. This one died on this side, so I can remove that. And these other side ones that are low down, they're contributing to the flare of the trunk here, but they're awfully weak shoots. You can tell the leaves are much smaller on them. So I don't know if I want to keep them or not. I think I'm just going to grow it as a single trunk tree. I think if I wanted a multi-trunk tree, I'd have to be very careful to balance the vigor between the two trunks here. Right now this trunk is quite a bit thicker than any of these side kind of twin trunks or triple trunks. So I think I'm going to remove these lower trunks and grow it as a upright tree. I'll try and make this style close to the parent tree, the one in the park. Alright, I'll get out the pruners and I'll start pruning. I'll start with this lower trunk, removing it. Like that. Then this one. I'll come in from above here. Like that. And then the dead one out the back here. I'll get rid of that. Like that. My next operation, I'll clean up the root base, and I think I'm going to peel all this moss away. It's getting really thick. It just grew here naturally, all by itself. So I'm going to peel it away. You can see it's very, very thick. And it'll grow back again. There's no worries about that. That way I can clearly see the base of the tree. I could have pruned this moss down using scissors, but it'll grow in again. It's a lot easier just to peel it off and, you know, have the moss grow again. Get rid of this moss on the trunk here too. Get my toothbrush out. So this tree is also getting a nice root base, a nice flare at the base here, which is a result of spreading those roots in a radial pattern and keeping a nice shallow flat root base. I am going to remove this root here. It's a little high, so I'll come in and snip that off and snip it off at ground level too, like that. The rest of my cuts look pretty good. Can't complain about those. Yeah, I'm happy with the base of this tree. There's a dead branch here I can prune off. My next step for this tree will be to get it out of the pot of water and trim the bottom of the roots like I did on the first tree. Okay, let's see what the roots look like. Lots of them in here. Take the tray of water away. And I'll trim these roots back from the drainage holes. And there's another solid mat of roots. I'll get fresh water and fertilizer in the pot of water and put the tree back in place. I'll add my powdered 20-20-20 fertilizer to the water, and I've got about a third of a cup here, and I'll give that a stir. This keeps the roots constantly fed and watered. Willows love lots of water. Now I'll put the tree back in place like that, and I'll give it a good top watering. And I think that's good. That's all the work I'll do today on my little willow cutting. It's making progress. It's starting to look more like a tree and less like a little stick. The last willow today is not a weeping willow, it's a black willow. This bonsai started out life as a cutting from a tree in the backyard. The first thing I'm going to do today is weed the tree. It's got some goldenrod growing in it here, like that. Wow, that's really rooted in here. There we go. I've got the tree weeded, and I've cleaned a lot of the moss away from the base of the tree. This tree will need repotting. The pot it's in is cracked in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 places. It's just barely holding together. So I'll have to find a new plastic pot for it and get it repotted. I've got this old plastic pot here, and I think it'll work really well with this tree. This plastic pot has started a lot of bonsai trees in its history. I think I've had it for over 20 years now. I've got a base layer of soil in the pot, so now I'll try and get the tree out of this pot, which shouldn't be hard, it's just kind of falling apart. There I go. Got a nice mat of roots on the bottom of the tree. So I think I'll just snip these roots from the drainage holes, rake this out a bit, and plant it in the new pot. I'll rake these roots out a bit just so they're not so matted. And then I'll give it a quick prune. That should do it. So this repotting is disturbing the roots as little as possible. It fits in the pot fine, so I'll build up my soil and get the tree planted. I think this tree is going to be very happy in this new pot. So that's a pretty good height for the tree. So the rest of the soil I can just put around the empty spaces here. I can keep my moss on and everything. If I were repotting this tree in spring, I could do more root work, but because it's a midsummer repot, I don't want to disturb the roots too much. That feels good and firm in the pot. So I'll give it a water. So here I go. And that should do it. I'm not going to do any pruning to this willow. I'm just going to let it recover and grow nice and strong for the winter. I will have to find a plastic under tray to sit underneath the pot. That'll hold some water. That'll constantly keep the soil wet. I really enjoyed working on the 3 willow trees today and going for an adventure seeing the full-size willow. I do have to get back to my bonsai show trees. I've got just over a month to get them all ready and looking in tip-top shape. That's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for watching here today in the Bonsai Zone.